So Liz Hamlet is known as the success spark, and she really is a spark. Tremendous energy, somebody who, after an extensive corporate career in financial services, investment banking, and housing, just pivoted when she was made redundant and started putting her coaching into practice by way of her own business. So she's all about helping leaders improve, helping people get more career clarity, and really came onto my radar because she started engaging with our content on LinkedIn. And as we try and teach people via this podcast, LinkedIn's a tremendous opportunity to build a personal brand, make these kind of connections, and to get on people's radars. So she got on our radar so much that we decided to invite her on the podcast to find out a little bit more about Liz's story, but also to get her advice on how we can spark more energy and more momentum into our careers. So without further ado, we're going to go and listen to the Executive Career Jump podcast with Liz Hamlet. Let's get to work.
You're listening to the Career Jump podcast. Insights, interviews, and success stories to inspire and give you the edge when you make your next career jump. Hosted by your career concierge, Andrew MacAskill.
Hi, welcome back to the Executive Career Jump podcast. I'm your host and career concierge, Andrew MacAskill. Really happy today to be joined by Liz Hamlet. How are you doing, Liz?
I'm great, thanks.
Yeah, well, thanks for freeing up the time. We've been connected for a while. You even jumped up on the virtual stage one day and spoke to us as well.
I did. Oh, I like getting up on the stage.
Yeah, just as well, because you obviously do a lot of speaking, a lot of training, a lot of workshops and things. So just as well. But I just love that kind of action-taking approach to life. But for those that aren't following you currently or aren't aware of your work, tell us a little bit more about what you do and what you get involved with.
Yeah, so my name is Liz Hamlet. I'm the founder of Spark Succeed, which is a coaching and consulting business. And I basically work with leaders and also business owners to help them to lead better. So I help them to sort of leverage their existing success. And I speak about sparking possibility, motivation, and momentum with them, because I think those are some of the things that sometimes people struggle with, is either the motivation part or the momentum. So I'm working with them either one-to-one sort of advisory basis or in groups to help get going, basically. And like yourself, I'm a fellow podcaster. So I host the How to Spark Success podcast show, which is where we get to steal some of the success secrets of global leaders. And Andrew, I'm hoping to get you on the show as well after this.
All right, no worries. Yeah, we'll do the return leg. That's all good fun, no problem. Very good. So really meaningful work. Now, one post that you put out that I think I saw on Instagram, but which really stood out, was you posted a question, which is, what do you want to be remembered for? And I thought that was such a powerful question for people to think about in terms of their legacy. So I'm going to throw it back at you and say, what do you want to be remembered for, Liz, in terms of your career and your work?
Well, one of the things I do get a lot of feedback on is sort of my energy and the sort of positivity and all of that. So I think, that spark, and that's where the sort of spark came from in Spark Succeed. But I think also it's sort of helping people on that leg up to either their next career jump, their next executive career jump, or, starting their own business, which I've helped a lot of people to launch during my time working with them. So, I think that's the legacy really of sort of getting the support that I've had throughout my career, but also, at the start of my career that I wish I'd had. For example, I've just started volunteering with my old university with graduates and undergraduates to help them to really get their career launched. And I've just been matched with a mentee, so I'm really excited about that. And that's something I wish I knew about, or whether that, I don't know if that even exists. So it's nice to go back to my old uni and actually help someone else learn from some of my successes, but also some of my mistakes during my career. So I think, that making a difference to someone else and, really helping them to sort of step out of the fear really of that next step.
No, I love that. That's a very, very good aim that I think we can all help support you with. One of the things you mentioned right at the start was momentum.
Yeah.
Really important word, actually, I think, when it comes to careers. So what advice would you have to somebody who's listening to the podcast that maybe hasn't got any energy or momentum, or they don't feel like they're getting any momentum going in terms of their career? What would you tell them?
I think some of that's around your personality type initially, and I'm sure you'll know this. So, when you do all the sort of personality tests, I'm a very much sort of ideas and sort of really great at getting things going and, that start and, needing people in my team to sort of work with me to continue those longer term projects. So I think it's also part of it's understanding your personality and your preferences in terms of working. You may be that person that helps someone to sort of continue the momentum, but you might need a bit of help with the ideas. So I think part of it's identifying, your personality type and your preferences and how you work best. And I think another part of that is also about sort of not necessarily having just the long-term big goal. It's about sort of celebrating those small wins as you go along and celebrate them as they mean to you. So, that might be a little treat or, posting about it. And I hope you're doing that anyway, I must say. Or, a nice glass of wine at the end of the day. Well, however that celebration looks like for you. But I think celebrating the small wins is really key to keeping yourself motivated in the longer term. I know I'm sure I've heard you talk about this on some of the previous podcasts is, not just having that end goal, celebrating the progress along the way. And I think a lot of people fail to do that. They'll just see that, I'm still 6 months off from achieving this or launching my website, which I know you've just relaunched yours. So it's very topical. But yes, sort of continued celebration to motivate you and also bringing in people, as business owners, not necessarily doing everything yourself. So bringing in those experts and those motivators and those people that can keep you going and really keep you focused on what you do best. As you know, when you're starting a business, you have to be a bit of a Jack and Jill of all trades. But, when you are at that tipping point in your business, being able to bring people in who are the experts in all those different areas, whether that's social media, whether that's your website, tech support, whatever that looks like, marketing, and actually acknowledging and bringing a team around you that are actually better than you in those areas. And I think that's really key sort of to keep you going. But I think the motivation thing's quite difficult. So I think we're all experiencing that sort of low energy, having been in sort of some level of lockdown with the news that's come about recently where things are changing. And I think, really taking time to sort of look after yourself as well and not letting the sort of daytime business hours that if you're working from home bleed into your evenings and weekends. I think that's key as well. So you've got some sort of separation from, your home life and your work life is key. I mean, what have you found has worked for you during this time for sort of motivation?
Yeah, well, I think that a really important point you shared there that we would absolutely agree with is the leaning into your strengths. So I think people spend way too much time thinking about their weaknesses. And one thing that I've always been pretty good at is just ignoring them and only doing stuff that I enjoy or I'm good at. And I think that's a really good strategy. As you say, you can plug the holes with other people who are complementary. So what I'm hearing, I think, from you is, first of all, people need to have self-awareness around where they're at and what they want and what they're good at, and then lean into those strengths. And that's absolutely been my experience too. So why do you think so many people aren't happy in their careers and don't feel like they've got energy and momentum? And again, another quote I saw from you was, do you do what you love or do you do what you're good at? I thought that was a thought-provoking post. So tell me a little bit about what you're seeing, how people are approaching their careers, and why you think so many of us aren't getting the fulfillment that we want.
Yeah, I've seen probably over the last year, I've seen a big shift in people that have been perfectly satisfied in quite a long-term leadership career in, an established business, and thinking these are probably the people who are going to sort of almost see out their career in this leadership role. I've seen them really feeling like they're at a bit of a crossroads in their career. So I think seeing another way sort of opened itself during lockdown with the, not having the long commute, the, extended hours for evening meetings and different things like that. So I think that definitely played a part. But I think also people have really reconsidered, is this the business that I want to stay in? Is my job secure? I think a lot of people remain in their roles that perhaps are just okay. They're paid good money, but maybe not particularly challenging, or maybe they just don't feel like it's their heart's work. And I think now people have realised that there's no job for life, that it is even an established business can be quite unstable. And they're also sort of reconsidering everything. So I've been working with a lot of leaders one-to-one, sort of coach them through that sort of almost like crisis of conscience, really, of saying, well, I've been here for so long and I've still got so much to do in this organisation, yet my heart's calling me in a different direction, perhaps to a more senior role or in a slightly different sector. And I think, that facilitation of that thinking is quite key. And, a lot of people think coaches, you're doing it for sort of embetterment, but often it's just being there to help listen to their sort of thought process and decision making and help ask those tricky questions that we often avoid asking ourselves because they're a bit scary. We don't really want to know the answers. So that's a big shift I've seen. And I think I've also seen a lot of people move in their sort of so-called side hustle businesses to their main businesses now. I think they've realised that actually, the focus on work-life balance or, like making your own, the satisfaction of making your own money is really outweighs that role that's there and you've done it for 10 years and, you've been and got the medal for the business and everything. So, I've seen those two shifts and I was listening to your episode with Amelia a couple of episodes ago, I think, all around personal branding. I think that was really key for job seekers about how they're failing perhaps to sort of fly the flag for themselves online. And, people think, well, I'm just an employee. I don't need to do this. I'm not a business owner. And I think that's a key area that they're missing. And, one of the things we're doing actually next week, we're doing a sort of purposely visible free challenge, which is all around people getting purposely visible on LinkedIn. I know, you're a big advocate for the benefits of that on LinkedIn, but I think people still don't necessarily connect the dots. They've just got it as their CV. They might log on once a week. They might just scroll through, never engage in. And, they're just failing to use the benefits of the platform, I think. So, there's a few areas that I've really noticed over the last year, particularly.
No, yeah, I've seen exactly the same. And I mean, the whole thing about personal branding is what we're finding. We're trying to help people build a personal brand at a time when they desperately need one.
Yeah.
And my advice is that everybody should be nurturing this on an ongoing basis.
Yeah.
So that you're attracting in opportunity, so that you're making new connections, so that you're creating, new customer links, or you're able to hire in a better way, or whatever it might be, so that you're never starting from scratch and you're never vulnerable, whether you're setting up your own business or you're moving job. I think it's something you've got to nurture in the long term in a strategic way. It's so important. It's the one thing that you're in control of and that nobody can ever take away from you. So yeah.
Totally.
Hey, everybody. Sorry to interrupt the podcast, but I wanted to tell you very quickly about how Executive Career Jump can help end your career misery. So when you hit our website, there's 3 different ways that our digital resources can help you. For a start, if you're looking to jump in to a new role, we've got the premier online job search course that you're going to find anywhere. There's a number of different memberships to help you understand what you want and how to go and get it in this current environment. So we're here to help you if you want a new career. We've also got a section if you want to jump up in your career. And so this is all about our online leadership hub, which is a platform full of content, includes 2 meetups per quarter and a whole thriving community of leaders trying to become the best leaders they can be. Go and check that out too. And the third area in our website and the other digital course that might help you is our Business Launcher course. So we've created the Business Launcher program that we wish we had when we were setting up on their own. So if you've decided to jump off of the employment stream and start up on your own, make sure you head over and check that out too. You can find all of these resources, a bunch of free content, links to previous podcasts and more at execcareerjump.com. That's EXEC careerjump.com. Now, back to the pod. And so you've been doing quite a lot, haven't you, in terms of LinkedIn and some of the other platforms as well. What advice would you have to somebody who is about to start sharing some more content?
Yeah, well, I would say it's quite scary for people if you haven't sort of, apart from, maybe on your personal Facebook or personal Instagram, you haven't started sharing for your personal brand and your career. It's quite daunting. And you do have that crisis of confidence. So one of the things I would say is sort of start just by engaging, even if you're not commenting, if you're commenting not just a that's great, or totally agree. You know, like actually, I always try and ask a question because I think, you know, especially if you're one of the early people to comment on a post, I think, you know, that's when, and I've had lots of engagement just on a comment, you know, not even starting to think about my own content. And the other area I'm trying to encourage people to focus on is really being a bit more vulnerable. It's hard. You do feel like you're peeling off so many layers by doing that. But I think people are so interested in you as a person, but also your background story. You know, like if you set up a business, what was the reason for setting up your business? What was the story that took you to the point of wanting to step out of the corporate life like I did and you did, you know, and to launch your own business? And, you know, what was the journey up to that? And what was the challenges? What did you struggle with? And I know you talk about, you know, quotes and different things, but, you know, one of the quotes for me that I always sort of carry with me is to feel the fear and do it anyway. Because even if you're fearful, actually, the biggest things and the biggest sort of stretch and growth in your life will be when you're feeling uncomfortable. So I know you use this phrase as well, is get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because then it's not so scary, really. And really the only way to overcome that fear is to actually get out and do it. So, you know, that's what I would say in terms of your content, and just get out and do it and test what works. You know, some things might not take off, you know, some things may not be like, you know, an overnight success, but, you know, just keep going. And I think consistency as well, people will start to have you in their like ether, their LinkedIn ether. You know, I've had people that have never commented or liked any of my posts and say, oh, I read all of your content, I love it, and, you know, I'd like to work with you. So, you know, it shows how you can impact people without perhaps even realizing it. So, you know, feel the fear and do it anyway in terms of content.
Yeah, it's a great quote. Feel the fear and do it anyway. I like your point around stories and sharing your own story and making what you share relatable and engaging to others. This idea that we have to come up with some kind of like McKinsey standard thought leadership is just a nonsense. We don't have to.
Yeah.
We don't have to. That, like, people are far more interested in people's personal experiences and the learnings within those. They find them inspiring. Yeah. So yeah, great bit of advice there. And a nice segue, actually, because you mentioned you made your own career jump after 10 years of, you know, working out your way up within an organization to a senior level. Tell us about the circumstances at that time, why you decided to do it, and any advice or regrets or anything you tell yourself if you were going back.
I think the only regret I'll start with a regret because I'll forget to mention that. But I think the only regret I have is not setting my own business up sooner, because I love it. But yeah, my career journey. So like my career journey, sort of going back from there, is quite squiggly, as they would say. So I started out I did languages at uni, and then I thought I need to go into a business where I can use my languages. Where can I do that? And I thought travel. So I went into the travel sector, sort of contracting hotels, you know, a bit of travel, you know, fantastic. But it was a very small company, and I wanted to go into something more sort of multinational. So I went from that to huge multinational, moved to Morgan Stanley in the city, investment banking, did all my qualifications for trading and everything, and then got struck with the sort of moved around in investment banking, got struck with the sort of city crisis. So I took a step out and I ended up in housing, and that's where I was for the last sort of 17 years of my career in various roles. And yeah, my last organisation was Peabody, which is one of the largest sort of housing providers in London, in the UK. And yeah, like you're saying, working my way up to more senior roles. And I was always really liked the element of sort of supporting other people with their careers. So I founded, at that time, probably 6 years before I left, I founded a Realising Your Career Potential program, because I didn't see anything that was supporting people with internal interviews and that process, and sort of supporting the retention stats of HR. And it was really popular. You know, we went through from CVs, talked about LinkedIn, we did some mock interviews. You know, it was just a day with people, but it really, I think, made them think differently about internal interviews. And yeah, we gave some quite frank feedback on mock interviews.
As you do.
Yeah, I don't think they'd ever really had any proper feedback. So, we were able to actually teach them the sort of process of good, rounded, interview answers, and then actually test it in situ. So, it was really popular. And hearing people back that actually had got promotions as a result of that was really cheering. Yeah, and then I'd always had this sort of niggling voice in the back of my mind about starting up my own business. And it came to the point where towards the last sort of 6 months, I wasn't very satisfied and happy in the role. I was actually getting quite sort of stressed, really. I won't talk about the situation that caused that, but I wasn't very happy, basically. And I had the opportunity to take redundancy, and I thought it's now or never. So that's when I took the leap. And had a bit of time off, so I think I needed it, just some time off, and I refreshed my skills. I'd already qualified as a coach about 18 years ago. So I just sort of did some refresher courses. I got stuck a little bit for a little while in that loop of you're fearful, so you just keep doing more courses and avoid having to actually do the scary thing, which is launch your business. Which I now help coach people through. So, and then I launched my business week 1 of lockdown, the first lockdown, which a lot of people were saying, do you not want to delay your launch? And I was like, no, this is the time. But actually, I think I've been working more internationally as a result of it, because there really was no borders then. You didn't have to go off and meet clients or in person and have all that sort of dead time, travel time. So it's been an interesting time, as you will know, in early part of business. But that's the sort of journey for me, really.
Love it. No, thanks for sharing it so openly. And do you find that the coaching qualifications have helped you? I've never done a single coaching qualification. Like, what did you get from the structure that the qualifications gave you?
I think they do. I think some of it's more just the practice, but I don't think, you can do as many courses as you want, but until you actually do it, you don't know if you're going to enjoy the process of coaching people, because actually it is quite different from mentoring. When you're mentoring, you are sort of giving advice and, recommending things for people to do in their career, whereas the coaching is very much, listening and questioning and like picking up, one of my sort of things I always think of with the coaching skills is someone will say something and I'll pick up on one word and I'll be like, that's an interesting word that you've just said. Let's delve into that. And they're like, no, that was just mentioning. And, asking those questions. And, I love it when I get a coaching client saying, oh, I've never really thought about that question before, and that's the ones that the gems, I think, during the coaching sessions. I think coaching gives you a basis, the qualifications, but I think, doing it there's nothing to be, said for like actually practicing that and knowing whether you even enjoy it or not.
Yeah, no, and it does take some practice, doesn't it? For sure. Like, I think about the initial meetings we had, 1,000 coaching meetings ago, and I cringe at some of the structures we were using and what we were doing. Like, it's something you really iterate over time, because you're kind of self-coaching yourself whilst you're coaching other people, aren't you?
Definitely. Yeah. And you want something to pin it to say, I'm a professional coach. Yeah. But actually, I think it's that listening ear and like almost like listening to the undercurrent of what's not been said. Yeah. They'll be saying something, but actually it's almost like what's underneath that, like the fear or the frustration or, totally. And digging down to that. And I think that's the skill. And I don't think you can teach that. I think it's just something that comes with practice and comes with, your nature, really.
I think, honestly, so we do a mixture of mentoring, coaching, and various other things. In the coaching bits, I think most of the people I talk to know what they want anyway. Like, I sit down with them and I go, what do you want to do? And they normally give me some kind of, I don't know, and I've got all this. And it was like, no, but what would you do if you weren't scared? Like, just tell me what you would do. Yeah. And then they tell me, and I'm like, well, go and do that. Like, most of them already know. They just want somebody to help them unblock and to give them permission, I think, as much as anything, to go and do it.
Yeah. And I think if they're anything like myself as well, is I really process my thinking and worries and, even planning and ideas and creativity comes out of talking. And, that is what you're really facilitating as a coach.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, so often you talk through a problem and you've solved it before they've.
Yeah, you're like, I know the answer now.
Yeah, no, very good. So a few other quick fire questions, if we can. Any books or podcasts that you would recommend?
Yes. So I love a podcast. I've got lots of books, and I think you mentioned the Blinkist.
Yeah.
Like having lots of books that you start and you're just so busy, you don't feel like you can get through to them. So that's why I love a podcast. So obviously I've been listening to this one like crazy, love it. So that would be on my top list. But I can have another 3 being cheeky. So my next one is a must listen, The Secret Diary of a CEO by Stephen Bartlett. I just love it because he asks some really personal and challenging questions to some really amazingly world famous people, and gets them really to dig deep, stuff that you've probably never heard of from them before.
Did you? Yeah, Jimmy Carr was a good example of that.
I haven't listened to that. I listened to Mel Robbins at the weekend, and she cried basically, and he's like, she's never cried in any interview, but it was very raw, and I think that's just that vulnerability piece again about your story. So is that one. Fellow LinkedIn change makers Helen and Sarah's Squiggly Careers podcast I love, because myself love a squiggly career, being a squiggly careerer. And I think really about taking control of your career and it not necessarily being that upward ladder, and that you can sort of take twists and turns and, follow your skills effectively. And then I'm going to be naughty and put my own podcast in, because it has impacted my career, which is How to Spark Success. Because the start of lockdown, I thought, I'd love to have a career. And I think in my head, in my career and business plan, I thought it'd be about 3 years off. And then I just thought, why the heck not? Let's just get it started. So yeah, and I'm like 45. I think I've just launched the 45th episode last week, and yeah, I love it. And I get messages all the time saying I was listening to you in my car and I loved this episode. And that's really about sort of understanding people's sort of success journeys and challenges, and what took them to where they are today. So that has impacted my career, because it's something that I never really thought that I would have, and I love it.
And I think that's brilliant. And so where can people find that? Is it on Spotify and Apple? And
it is everywhere. Anywhere you listen to your podcast, you will find How to Spark Success. And it's got a nice yellow background with me on there. You'll find it easily. And you can find it through all my platforms.
Love that. Well, make sure we subscribe to Liz's podcast. Definitely subscribe to this one if you're not already as well.
Oh, yes, of course.
And Diary of a CEO is an absolute must. Like I would say, that's probably the podcast that inspired me to start podcasting, I would say, because I enjoyed it so much when I was listening to it. And my top episodes in there, there's a guy called Mohit Gandhi. Who wrote a book called Solve Happy, who lost his son and then left his huge job in Google and now goes around talking about the happiness equation. That was a mind-blowing episode. So start there. And Jimmy Carr's was really interesting the other day too.
Yes, I must listen.
Very good. So what are you excited about next?
What are we excited about next? So first thing I mentioned, we're doing this, probably be out too late, the episode for the challenge, but we're doing a 4-day challenge, which will be very exciting. I'm collaborating with my great friend and business colleague, Yolanda, who is a social media strategist. So we're talking all about LinkedIn, all about some of the pitfalls, some of the things to focus on. So it's great, source of info. And also in the new year, I'm kicking off quite a few things. So I'm mentoring a university student at my old university. So hopefully we'll meet her before Christmas. The next thing is, it should be announced soon, but I'm acting in an advisory role part-time for a growing tech startup focusing on sort of mental health, coaching and counselling. So for sort of multinationals and everything. So I'm just going to be helping them with their engagement and with sort of training all the professionals and getting the professionals together and sort of building a community for them. And what else am I doing? Oh, and I'm helping startups in my local borough by coaching them. And that's just a few things that I can think of that I'm excited about. But there's lots more in the new year.
No, it sounds super exciting and such a nice variation. Mentoring is, I think as a mentor, you get as much out of it as the mentee. I'd recommend anybody who's got experience to look at that. So for somebody that was listening to this that wanted to reach out to you or follow you, what would be the best way for them to get in touch, Liz?
Probably the first platform is LinkedIn. So if you just search for Liz Hamlet, you'll find me probably at the top of the list, the Success Spark. It's a nice, colourful background. I think I've got a nice pink dress on. You won't miss me. And I'm also, the other platform that I'm quite active on is Instagram, and the tag is @spark.succeed. So come and follow me on both, connect and ask any questions you want in terms of career and branding. Happy to have a chat.
No, that's absolutely awesome. Make sure you do follow Liz if you're not already. And yeah, keep doing what you're doing. Keep setting those sparks off. I think it's fantastic to watch.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks so much for having me. It's been great to have a chat today.
No, thanks for coming on. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
You've been listening to the Career Jump podcast with Andrew MacAskill. For more resources and information, just head over to the Career Jump website at www.execcareerjump.com to supercharge your job search and start making moves. Let's get to work.